Your wife is still alive. 12-year-old Jane said it so casually, like she was talking about the weather. But for Ethan Ward, billionaire, widower, and broken man, it shattered everything he thought he knew. His wife Celeste died 6 months ago in a fiery crash, or so he believed. Now a child with no reason to lie claims she saw her, alive and whispering secrets in a graveyard. As Ethan unravels the truth with the help of the girl no one listens to, he discovers a web of betrayal spun by the two people he trusted most, his beloved wife and his best friend. And buried beneath their lies? A plan to steal his fortune, fake a death, and vanish without a trace. But this time they left a witness. The graveyard was silent, save for the rustle of dry leaves tumbling across cracked stone. A cold wind brushed through the trees, making the wrought iron gate creak faintly as it swung on aging hinges. Ethan Ward, wrapped in a black overcoat tailored to perfection, stood before the headstone that bore his wife's name. Celeste Ward, beloved wife, gentle soul, gone too soon. April 10th, 1995 to November 1st, 2024. He knelt slowly, fingers brushing the marble. It was warm, strangely warm, despite the chill in the air. A single white lily lay in his hand. He placed it gently at the base of the grave. 6 months, he murmured, his voice nearly lost to the wind. And I still don't know why you left. He closed his eyes, but the memory of her never came gently. It came as a blur, her laughter echoing in their coastal estate, the scent of lavender on her skin, the touch of her fingers laced through his during nights spent in front of the fire. And then the phone call. The crash. The closed casket. She had only been his wife for half a year. I should have known, he whispered, but what he thought he should have known remained tangled in silence. Behind him, a twig snapped. Ethan turned, his expression hardening, until he saw her. A girl, no older than 12. Ragged jeans, a faded yellow hoodie 2 sizes too big, and hair that might have been brushed yesterday or a week ago. She stared at him, not with curiosity, but with a haunted look in her eyes. You shouldn't be here, Ethan said quietly. This is private. The girl didn't flinch. She took a step closer. Your wife is still alive. Ethan blinked. What? I saw her today, she said, nodding toward the grave. She came here. She stood right where you are. Ethan rose to his feet, jaw tightening. That's not funny. I'm not trying to be funny. He looked around. No one else was near. The cemetery grounds were empty, and the gates had been locked behind him as always. This wasn't a place kids wandered into, especially not ones alone. What's your name? He asked. Jane. Where are your parents? Don't have any, she answered plainly, then glanced at the gravestone again. I saw her. This morning. She was wearing a green scarf, long black coat, and she had a ring. Big, shiny green stone. Ethan stiffened. Celeste's ring. An emerald set in platinum. Custom-made. It had never been recovered. He tried to remain calm, to keep his voice measured. You saw a woman. That doesn't mean it was. She was talking to someone by the chapel. A man in a gray hoodie. She was angry. Said something about, he doesn't suspect anything yet. I heard her say your name. Ethan's heart pounded. A sharp breeze carried dead leaves between them, but he barely noticed. Jane's eyes were steady, unwavering. She was either telling the truth, or she was a remarkably gifted liar. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't think she's a good person, Jane said. Her voice dropped. And because I heard them talking about gold. That stopped him cold. I think they're planning to leave soon, she added. I think they're going to steal something from you. Something big. Ethan didn't answer. His mind raced. Could it be possible? Could Celeste have faked her death? The closed casket. The missing ring. Adrian telling him to let go, not to dig too deep. And now this girl. Jane. How do I know you're not making all of this up? You don't, she said simply. But maybe you should come back here tomorrow. Early. Hide. Watch. You'll see I'm telling the truth. She turned to leave but paused. I'm not trying to scare you, but you should be careful. They didn't look like they wanted anyone to find out. And just like that, She walked off, slipping between the tombstones like a shadow. Ethan watched her go, every instinct inside him warring between disbelief and dread. He turned back toward the gravestone. For the first time since her funeral, the quiet of the graveyard felt suffocating. Ethan sat in his study that night, staring at the fire. The flames danced across the walls, but offered no warmth. He hadn't touched his scotch. A single file folder lay open on the coffee table before him. Celeste's autopsy report. He'd read it more times than he could count, but now every word felt suspicious. He ran a finger over the typed lines. Blunt force trauma to the head. Severe internal hemorrhaging. No identification due to fire damage. DNA confirmation based on personal items. Fire damage. No open casket. DNA confirmation based on personal items, not her body. Damn it, Ethan muttered under his breath. Something didn't add up. He had never asked too many questions back then. Grief had clouded everything, and his best friend Adrian had handled the details. The funeral. The press. The silence. He picked up his phone and called a name he hadn't spoken in years. Marta Chun, a former federal investigator turned private eye. They hadn't spoken since she left government work, but she owed him a favor. The phone rang twice. "Ward," she answered, sharp as ever. "You finally got tired of playing billionaire monk?" "I need help," he said. "Personal. Off the books." "I'm listening." "My wife. Celeste. The one who supposedly died last year. Someone just told me she's alive." There was a long pause. "Define someone." "A child. A girl. 12, maybe. She claims to have seen Celeste at her grave this morning." Another pause. "How credible is this kid?" "I don't know. But she knew details, her coat, her ring, things I never made public. And there's something else. She said Celeste was meeting someone. She overheard them talking about a plan." "Jesus," Marta muttered. "You think this wasn't an accident?" "I think it was a setup. And I want to know everything I missed." "Send me the files," she said. "And the name of the coroner who signed the autopsy." The next day, Ethan went through his safe, pulling out the official death certificates, insurance paperwork, and the full autopsy report again. Dr. Charles Edlin, the coroner, retired now last he heard. Or so he thought. By evening, Marta called back. "Dr. Edlin vanished 6 months ago. Neighbors say he packed up overnight and left town. No forwarding address, no exit paperwork from the hospital." Ethan rubbed his temples. So she could have faked it. She definitely faked it. "I ran a basic trace on Celeste's bank account. Minor, nothing deep, and there were 2 flagged transactions. Both after her death. Transfers to an encrypted account based offshore. I couldn't trace the recipient yet. She had access to my accounts," Ethan said, voice low. "I gave her everything. Thought I was doing the right thing." "You weren't the first man she charmed," Marta said flatly. "But you're lucky someone told you now." Ethan stood by the window, gazing at the sweeping cliffside view behind his estate. The same view he'd watched with Celeste so many nights. Her arms wrapped around him. Her promises. Her smiles. "Have you checked Adrian?" Marta asked. That name pulled Ethan out of his thoughts. What about him? If she faked her death and you didn't know, she had to have help. Someone close. Someone who could keep you from digging. Ethan hesitated. "Adrian. He was the first one I called when she died. He arranged the burial. Handled the press. He was always there." "Exactly." Marta's words hit harder than they should have. Adrian Locke, his childhood friend. His best man. The one person who stood beside him through every loss and every gain. It seemed unthinkable. But then again, so did Celeste's resurrection. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in the library, the heavy door closed behind him, and looked toward the vault hidden behind the oak panel bookshelf. The security panel blinked faintly. A 6-digit code only he knew. Inside lay $15 million in gold bars, bearer bonds, and priceless heirlooms from his grandfather's legacy. He walked over and punched in the code. The door hissed softly open. Everything appeared untouched. But for the first time, he felt watched, even inside his own home. The next morning, Jane returned. Ethan found her waiting at the cemetery gate, shivering slightly in the fog. She was holding a worn notebook, the corners curled and dirty. "I drew something," she said, handing it to him. He opened to the page and froze. A sketch, childlike but detailed. 2 figures. A woman in a long coat, with a scarf and a green gem on her finger. Beside her, a tall man in a hooded sweatshirt. They stood near the old chapel, looking over their shoulders. Scribbled next to them were the words, "He doesn't know. The safe is still there. We leave soon. Are you sure this is what you heard?" Jane nodded. "I have a good memory. That's why I drew it fast. I thought maybe you'd believe me if you saw it." Ethan closed the notebook gently. "I believe you." She looked up, hopeful for the first time. "I'm going to fix this," Ethan said. "But I need your help." Jane nodded, solemn and small beneath the mist. "Okay." The rain had started by late afternoon, a gentle tapping against the windows of Ethan's estate. The world outside looked distorted, as if time itself was unraveling in waves. Ethan sat across from Jane, the girl who had changed everything, now perched carefully on the edge of the massive leather armchair in his library, legs tucked underneath her, soaking wet from her walk through the cemetery trail. Ethan offered her a towel, which she accepted silently. He poured her a cup of hot cocoa, real cocoa, not powdered, and set it in front of her on the mahogany coffee table. She stared at it as if it might explode. "You're not used to being in places like this, are you?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "No one lets me in anywhere." "Why were you at the graveyard again today?" he asked. "I wanted to see if they came back," she replied, clutching the towel around her shoulders. "I thought maybe if I kept watch, I'd hear more. Or maybe they'd mess up." Ethan studied her. There was a gravity behind her eyes that didn't belong in someone her age. A sharpness. She wasn't just clever, she was observant, deliberate. Too much so for a girl who should be worrying about homework and summer camps. "You said yesterday you overheard them talk. Celeste and a man. Are you sure it was the same guy today?" She nodded quickly. He was wearing the same hoodie, gray with the sleeves rolled up. "I saw the tattoo on his forearm." Ethan leaned forward. "What kind of tattoo?" "A lion, with a crown, and words underneath. Latin, I think." His throat tightened. "Veni, vidi, vici." Adrian's tattoo. A ridiculous boast from their wild college days, inked during a drunken night in Rome. It had faded slightly over the years, but it was unmistakable. He stood suddenly, walking over to the shelves where a photo frame stood. A candid shot of him and Adrian at the yacht club, both in white shirts, glasses in hand. Ethan stared at it for a long time. "Do you know who he is?" Jane asked, following his gaze. "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "I've known him since we were kids." She didn't respond. She just sat, watching him. He turned to her. "Jane, I need to know something. Why did you come to me? Why not tell the police?" Her fingers fidgeted in her lap. She looked down. "Because no one listens to kids. Especially not ones like me. Like you." She looked up. "Ones that sleep in shelters and steal food when they have to." Ethan sat back down. The room fell into silence, filled only by the crackling fire and the soft clink of rain against glass. "I don't like people who lie," she said softly. "And I saw what she did. I don't think she's done hurting people. I thought maybe you were the only one who'd care." He exhaled slowly, heart heavy. "You were right." That night, Ethan opened his laptop in the study and began searching through archived security footage from the estate. Cameras covered most of the perimeter and all indoor access points, but one area, the library, was always exempt. The reason? Adrian. Years ago, Adrian had convinced him to disable the feed from that room. "Privacy for the vault," he'd said. "If anyone ever gets access to the system, you don't want them tracking when you open it." Now it felt less like security and more like a blind spot. Ethan forwarded the footage to Marta with a voice note. "Check for any irregular patterns, any visits, times Adrian showed up unannounced." Marta replied an hour later. "He's been at your house more than you have. Always when you're traveling. Always just checking in. And Ethan, I think he's been stealing from you for a while." The next morning, Jane returned with more sketches. "This is her car," she said, pointing to a rusted red sedan with tinted windows. "It's parked behind the old greenhouse by the hill." "You followed her?" "I waited. When they left yesterday, I walked the trail. I was careful." She handed him another page. This one made his blood run cold. It was a drawing of his estate. Not detailed, but enough. The house, the back gate, the garden, the side entrance, and the vault room, marked with a red X. I heard them talking about the vault again. She said she couldn't open it without the code. He told her not to worry, they'd find a way. Ethan clenched his jaw. "They're planning something soon." Jane nodded. "She's getting nervous." Said they're running out of time. Ethan stood. "Then we'll stop them before they try." "But how?" He turned to her, eyes steady. "By using their confidence against them." That evening, after Jane had gone back to the shelter she called home, Ethan made one last call. To a former Navy technician who now worked freelance installing security systems. "I want a secondary layer added to the vault. Silent alarms, biometric triggers, hidden cameras, everything." The man chuckled. "That's a serious job. Who are you trying to catch?" Ethan's voice was quiet. "Ghosts." That night, he stood alone in the hallway outside the library. Rain pounded the windows as thunder rolled in the distance. He touched the vault door once more. Inside, untouched and silent, lay the fortune that had built his empire. But somewhere, just beyond reach, his past was circling, wearing the face of the woman he had once loved, and the voice of the friend who had once sworn to protect him. And only one person had seen through the lie. A girl who no one believed. The room was dimly lit, the only glow coming from the 3 monitors arranged across Marta Chen's workstation. She sat in her downtown apartment, sleeves rolled to her elbows, eyes scanning rapidly through encrypted files, phone tucked between shoulder and chin. "You're going to want to hear this," she said into the phone. Ethan stood at the tall window of his estate library, his reflection blending with the storm outside. "I'm listening," he replied. "I traced one of the offshore accounts the funds were funneled into. Cayman Shell Corporation, cleaned through 2 real estate trusts, and then dumped into a private equity group. But here's the kicker. The equity group is owned by a holding company, LC Holdings." "And?" Ethan asked. Marta's voice tightened. "LC stands for Loch Celeste." Ethan didn't speak. "Ethan, they started this company together. Almost 3 months before Celeste's accident." Lightning flashed behind him. His fingers curled into fists. The timelines were unraveling. "So it was never an accident," he muttered. "No, it was a damn performance. And you were the audience." Meanwhile, in a derelict safe house tucked behind a line of brushwood outside town, Celeste Ward leaned over a low table, counting documents and maps with practiced ease. The woman who had once moved through luxury ballrooms with grace now wore worn boots, a fitted leather jacket, and no makeup. Her face was sharp, her smile hollow. Across from her, Adrian Locke watched the door, pacing like a coiled predator. "We need to move the timeline up," he said. "He's getting suspicious. The girl, Jane, she's been hanging around too much. It's a problem." "She's a kid," Celeste replied coolly. "She doesn't matter." "You said the same thing about Ethan," Adrian shot back. Celeste's gaze flicked up sharply. "Don't start." "I'm serious," Adrian said, coming closer. "You promised this would be clean. In and out. Take the gold. Take the bonds. Disappear. But now he's locking things down. You told me he'd fall apart after you were gone." "He did," she said. "For a while. But now he's asking questions." Celeste stood, gathering her coat. "Then we don't wait. We finish it tomorrow. You distract him. I get the code from the library. We wipe the vault, torch the place, and we're ghosts." Adrian caught her arm. "And then what?" "We disappear like we planned." Her voice softened as she looked at him. "Just you and me. No more lies." But even in that moment, as her lips brushed his cheek and she murmured, "I love you," her eyes didn't match her words. They were cold. Calculating. Back at the estate, Ethan and Marta pored over the blueprint of his home, the new biometric sensors blinking to life across the screen. "You're telling me they've been watching me from the start?" Ethan asked. Marta nodded. "From before she ever met you. Celeste's entire marriage to you was part of the setup. She knew Adrian would never get close enough to your vault without someone on the inside. So she seduced you, married you, got your passwords, your habits." Ethan looked away. "And I gave her everything, just like she wanted." "She didn't get everything," Marta said, leaning in. "Not yet." There was a beat of silence. Marta narrowed her eyes. "But you know what we're going to do, don't you?" He nodded slowly. "We're going to let them try." The next morning, Jane returned to the estate. This time, Ethan met her at the back garden entrance, where the hydrangeas masked the surveillance posts. She wore her usual hoodie, but today her expression was different, calmer, ready. "I saw the red car again," she said. "They were near the ridge at sunset last night. I think they were watching you." Ethan knelt beside her. "I need your help, Jane. One more thing." She met his eyes. "What is it?" "I need them to believe I've let my guard down. That I'm broken. That I'm not watching." "You want me to lie to them?" He hesitated. "I want you to leak a lie. Just loud enough that they hear it." Jane's eyes lit with realization. "You want me to bait them?" He nodded. She took a breath, then smiled slightly. "Okay. What's the story?" Ethan whispered the fabricated intel into her ear. Just enough to make it believable. A rumor that he planned to liquidate the vault contents tomorrow morning, out of grief, to close the chapter. "They'll take the risk," Marta added. "They won't wait another day. And when they come," Ethan said, "we'll be ready." That night, in the far corner of the estate, hidden among the creeping vines of the orchard wall, Celeste watched through binoculars. Lights were on inside the study. Ethan paced the floor alone, a bottle in hand, tie undone. She smirked. "He's unraveling," she whispered to Adrian. "Exactly like we planned." Adrian exhaled. "Then let's finish it." "Tomorrow night?" Celeste handed him the gear, hacking tools, gloves, a burner phone. "Tomorrow night." Neither noticed the silent drone hovering 10 feet above them, capturing every word. And elsewhere, in the silence of the dark, Ethan Ward finally understood. The wife he had once adored had never loved him. His best friend had never been a brother. And the only soul who saw it all, who warned him, was a forgotten little girl with no home but an instinct sharper than all of theirs. Tomorrow the trap would be set, and someone was going to lose everything. The storm had passed, but the sky remained bruised, dark clouds rolling low, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Inside the estate, Ethan stood in front of his bedroom mirror, tying his cufflinks slowly. His expression was unreadable, his hands steady. Every detail of tonight had been rehearsed, every variable measured. He knew who he was dealing with now. Celeste, Adrian, and a betrayal that had been meticulously crafted for over a year. But now the tables had turned. Downstairs, in the study, Jane sat curled in the wingback chair, sketchpad in her lap, pretending to be distracted. She wasn't. She was waiting. Her eyes flicked to the hallway where Marta stood in the shadows, armed with a silenced sidearm and a concealed earpiece. "Security grid's active," Marta whispered. "Motion sensors are live. Pressure sensors wired under the carpet. Cameras are patched to my laptop in the panic room. When they walk in, they'll think they're invisible. But we'll see everything." Jane looked up. "What if they try to hurt him?" "They won't get the chance," Marta replied. "Not tonight." 9:17 p.m. The red sedan appeared first, headlights off, creeping down the private road like a ghost. It stopped outside the orchard gate, just beyond the line of sight from the estate's main entrance. Two figures emerged, dressed in black, moving with quiet precision. Adrian carried a backpack. Celeste carried nothing. Her role was silent, surgical. They had done this dance in rehearsals, in whispers, in shadows. Ethan was the final stage of the con. "Camera 2 just picked them up," Marta's voice said through Ethan's earpiece. He stood in the library, sipping a glass of bourbon he didn't touch. The bookshelves loomed behind him like watchful eyes. Beneath the floor, the new vault door waited, doubled in weight, now lined with biometric scans and silent alarms. Let them come. 9:24 p.m. Celeste picked the back door lock in under 15 seconds. Adrian entered first, moving like muscle memory was guiding him. They didn't speak. Every hallway was familiar. They had walked these steps when Ethan wasn't home, when he was grieving and trusting, when Celeste would cry in his arms and slip a flash drive into his desk drawer. Now they moved toward the library, staying close to the wall. Marta's camera feed glowed in the dark. They're in. She tapped Jane's shoulder gently. Stay right here. Do not move. Jane nodded, clutching her sketchpad to her chest. In the library, Ethan pretended to stumble against the bar cart. He knocked over a glass, cursed under his breath, staggered just enough for Adrian to believe what he was seeing. Right on cue, Adrian whispered from the shadows. They waited. Observed. Ethan staggered toward the vault. Celeste hissed, he's going to open it. They moved in. But just before they stepped into the room, Ethan's voice rang out, clear, sober, cutting. You might as well come in. I've been expecting you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Celeste froze mid-step. Adrian's hand moved to his waistband. Don't, Marta's voice commanded, as she stepped out from the study door behind them, pistol raised. Hands where I can see them. Adrian laughed under his breath. Always 3 steps ahead, huh, Ethan? I was 10 steps behind for a year, Ethan replied coldly. I'm just now catching up. Celeste's expression shifted. Not fear. Not guilt. Just irritation. Was it the girl? She asked. Jane. No, Ethan said, stepping closer. It was you. The way you left that ring behind. The way Adrian always showed up with answers too fast. The way you died too conveniently. He looked her in the eye. But yes, the girl helped. Marta moved in, frisked Adrian, disarmed him, then turned to Celeste. I wouldn't, she warned. You so much as twitch toward your coat pocket, and I'll drop you. Typical, Celeste said, raising her hands. You don't know what it's like being with someone like him. All that wealth. All that control. I just wanted to be free. You wanted to be rich, Ethan snapped. Her lips curled slightly. So did you. Police arrived 6 minutes later. By then, Ethan had stepped outside into the garden, away from the noise, the flashing lights, the handcuffs. He didn't want to see her face again. Not like this. Not twisted by bitterness and failure. Not dragged away by 2 officers while Adrian shouted about legal rights and wiretaps. He just stood beneath the old sycamore tree, staring up into the cloud-choked sky. Jane approached quietly. Did it work? He turned. It worked. They're really going to jail? For a long time. She nodded, hugging her sketchpad. I'm glad. So am I. He kneeled, eye to eye with her. You saved my life, he said. I don't know how to repay you. I don't want money, she said. I want to stop running. Ethan smiled softly. Then don't. Stay here. With me. Back inside, Marta closed the vault door, sealing it with a hiss. On the monitors, Celeste and Adrian sat cuffed in the back of the squad car, shadows of the people they had pretended to be. The con was over. The performance had collapsed. And the final act had belonged not to the billionaire, not to the con artists, but to the forgotten little girl who refused to be overlooked. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. The estate, once filled with the invisible weight of lies and shadows, now felt hollow, like a cathedral after a funeral. Sunlight returned to the hallways, but it didn't bring peace, not yet. It merely revealed what had survived. Ethan stood by the grand piano in the music room, its lid closed, untouched since the night Celeste played it last. It had been a hauntingly slow waltz, a farewell tune he hadn't known was goodbye. He reached out, laid his hand on the smooth lacquered surface, and exhaled. Celeste and Adrian were gone, arrested, arraigned, denied bail. The charges were severe: fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, falsifying death records, identity deception, and attempted grand larceny. With Marta's evidence and Jane's sworn testimony, the case was airtight. But justice didn't feel like closure. Not yet. In the guest wing, Jane sat cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by freshly unboxed art supplies. Colored pencils, pastels, heavy sketchbooks. Things she'd only seen behind glass in stores before. She picked up a graphite pencil and began sketching again. Not a crime. Not a memory. Just a tree outside her window. A real one. Something rooted. Permanent. Ethan knocked gently on the doorframe. "Hey," he said. She looked up. "Hey." He stepped in, holding a folder. "This came today. From Family Services." Her face tightened. "It's good news," he added. He opened the folder slowly and placed the papers in her lap. The top one bore her name in bold letters. Jane Renee Carter. Temporary legal guardianship granted to Mr. Ethan Ward. Her mouth fell open slightly. "Wait, does that mean?" "It means you're staying," Ethan said. "As long as you want. No shelters. No strangers. Just here." She blinked quickly, as if trying to erase tears before they could fall. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do that?" He sat beside her. "Because you saw the truth when I didn't. You risked everything to tell me. Because you're smart, brave, and because," he hesitated, "because I've been alone for too long. And I think maybe you have too." Jane looked down at the papers again, then back up. "I won't be a problem," she said quickly. "I can cook, and I won't steal anything, and I'll keep my stuff out of the way." "Jane," Ethan interrupted gently. "You're not here on trial. This is your home now. Just be yourself." She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. She reached for her sketchpad, flipped to a fresh page, and began drawing. The summer days rolled in quietly after that. The media storm died down, interest fading once the story lost its shock value. Celeste's betrayal became a headline that scrolled out of existence. Adrian's betrayal was harder to forget. But with time, even that wound began to scar. One evening, as golden light stretched long across the lawn, Jane sat at the garden table, sketching Ethan as he sipped coffee and read a book. She studied his expression, soft, thoughtful, and carefully etched each line into her paper. After a few moments, he looked up. "What are you working on?" She turned the sketchpad around. The drawing showed Ethan sitting under the sycamore tree, smiling. Not the kind of smile he wore for press cameras or polite company, but a real one. Gentle. Human. Free of pain. He stared at it. "It's good," he said, but his voice caught slightly. She shrugged. "You looked happy. I didn't want to forget it." He looked down at her. "Neither do I." That night, before bed, Ethan unlocked the vault one last time. Not out of fear. Just habit. He walked inside, now lined with reinforced steel and silent security. The gold was still there, untouched. The bonds. The heirlooms. He reached for the small velvet box at the back corner. The ring. Celeste's emerald ring, recovered by Marta during the arrest. It was worth more than most houses, but now it meant nothing. He closed the box and placed it into a sealed case labeled evidence, closed. Then he turned off the light and walked out. Weeks later, a new photo appeared on the mantel. It wasn't of Celeste, or Adrian, or a framed article about the billionaire betrayed. It was of Ethan and Jane, standing in front of the sycamore tree. She was holding her sketchpad. He was laughing. Below the frame, etched in tiny letters, were the words, "Sometimes the truth finds its way, through the most unexpected voices." We have come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.